seconds.
No, 4 seconds.
No, it's 3.
I think it's 2.
Feels like 1. Oh my God, here we go. Hey, Paul. The Marvel Cinematic Universe has dropped another entry into their world of Marvel movies, and we're going to talk about it tonight.
I'm in a universe where I can't sit still.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Real to Real Talk. I am Sergio Barrera, and it's time once again to talk all things movies. Joining me, as always, is the other Real to Real Talker, Paul Britton. Paul, we have one thing on our agenda. Well, one main thing on our agenda, and that's to talk about the most recent entry into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Paul, we were looking forward to this one for quite a while.
I know, and now I come from you as Paul from a universe where I have to have a cube on my shoulder. But it keeps falling off, so I'll stop that.
Oh, okay.
All right, yes. I was like, God bless Spider-Man Return No Way Home. I loved it, but it even going into it felt like it was a separate thing from like it's part of the MCU, but it very much felt like they were like, yeah, this is loosely in the MCU, and
Sure.
it very much felt like an exit piece to get Spider-Man out of the MCU, whereas this was, even the Eternals didn't feel like this felt like, okay, we're in the MCU. Like this, these are people we know. This could lead to other things. Yeah, so I've been excited. This felt like the first real MCU movie since Far From Home, the one immediate Spider-Man Far From Home, and from a continuity standpoint, and so yeah, I've been super excited.
Well, we are talking about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and tonight we will be focusing our show on reviewing this particular film. Mm-hmm. And I got to tell you, Paul, you mentioned the whole Spider-Man thing, Spider-Man No Way Home, which we talked about on the show just a few episodes ago, it seems. And one of the things that I know right from the outset, I noticed in this film, and maybe for the reason that you're talking about, that perhaps there was some form of like separation of the character of Spider-Man and so forth. I haven't really read deep enough to even know if that's the thing. Mm-hmm. There was really no callback. This multiverse stuff was introduced basically in that film, No Way Home. And I was actually kind of surprised that, and I don't think this is a spoiler of any type, it didn't seem, this was like a standalone film and story that was basically free of that connection. And so I don't know if that's something you thought as you watched it.
Free of what connection exactly?
Well, I thought because Doctor Strange was in No Way Home, that this Multiverse of Madness film was going to be part and parcel with that, and in some forms an extension of that story. If you didn't watch No Way Home, I think this film would have worked 100% on its own.
Sure.
With no regard to the notion of the reason that we're now stuck in this sort of multiverse scenario is that he did some stuff in No Way Home that sort of exposed us to that, right?
So it's standalone to the extent that the prior one, look, like a lot of those Marvel's MCU movies are standalone, like, but it helps if you have a little bit of background, like,
sure.
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is standalone from the other MCU movies.
From a story standpoint.
Yeah, from a story standpoint.
Yeah.
But it helps. And this is very much that. I mean, and you could almost say that I haven't spoken to anybody who has seen this and hasn't watched WandaVision yet.
Right.
And I'd be curious about, like, how easy would it be to understand what's going on in this without having seen WandaVision?
Listen, as someone who almost went into this film not having watched WandaVision, because I literally finished WandaVision the day before I saw this film.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful that I did, because I would have been like, what?
Yeah.
Like, there's so much. I think there was enough that happened that I would have been like, I don't get this. Like, what is happening? Why is she so angry? And so, you know, because if you go if you go back from this film back to Endgame, that would have been the last time I would have had any sort of Wanda Maximoff exposure in the MCU.
Sure.
And I would have been like, I don't know why she's pissed. You know, because I jokingly said, I jokingly turned to my friend Nick. I went to the movie the night it opened. And after the film was over, I love to troll Nick all the time, Nick Kramer, who's a friend of the show. And I said, so all of this because she was having a tantrum. And so
yeah, well, okay, so
it was more than that. I know, but that was my joke. I was like, so this whole film because she was having a big tantrum. So
yeah, well, but because she like literally had to watch her Vision die and be the one be the one to originally kill him,
right?
You know, have the trauma of killing him, then the trauma of him coming back, or not the trauma, but the emotional wreckage of having him come back to life, only to have the trauma again of watching somebody else kill him.
Absolutely,
and I think that they could have leaned into that a little more, that as the instigating trauma in essence. But also, I think they had to, and there has been some protestation about it, but I think they had to make it a little bit more, and bring in the whole sort of motherly love is stronger than sanity type of thing. I don't know how to put it.
And to that point, if there's one thing that I can say I admire, I think is the word, about what the MCU is doing, is they're all in on, you need to watch our stuff. You know, like there are some things, you know, there are a couple of episodes of the What If series, and you had told me about this as well, to catch, you know, certain episodes. A few others had told me. I love the fact that this brand, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is really just challenging us as viewers to say, you know what, if you go to the movies only, you're going to miss some stuff. So you need to keep up with our products. And granted, there's been a lot of other episodes that still haven't played in, or a lot of other shows, I should say, Loki, for example, that I know, you know, stuff's coming, right? But I don't know. I as I finished watching this movie, and in the days since, as I've had some time to sort of mull it over and think about the experience, I really like that the MCU on Disney is leaning into the notion of, you need to keep up with our stuff. And that's the only way you're going to enjoy our product. And so, you know, there
is a commitment on both sides. There is an expected commitment on both sides. And that's a double-edged sword.
It is.
It's great that there's the commitment, but it's also like,
I don't have time.
Just give me movies. Like, you know, just give me movies.
Right.
But I will say this. As it turned out, the What If, the you should see What If was far less important than you should see Scarlet WandaVision.
Yeah.
And honestly, the What If tie-in was more sort of like a fun little like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. So this
it was a nudge to like, hey, remember this?
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, that's one of the I want us to be, I don't know, are we being careful?
Well, I think we're being careful, and then we'll get to the end. There is a bit where I'm gonna want to talk about some things, and it's gonna be flat out spoiler.
We may have to do a signpost spoiler moment, or spoiler warning. I do want to say this. There was so much buildup, but okay, let me qualify what I'm about to say.
Okay.
If you followed what fans were saying about things that were leaked and exposed, right? I think there was probably a feeling of like, that was it. That's why they, you know, introduced certain character or yada yada. But then again, you have to remember, okay, but this was in another universe, right?
This was in another universe, and B, this was directed by Sam Raimi.
Right, absolutely. Which
and so Sam Raimi don't give a fuck.
Right.
And Sam Raimi's gonna just make fun of people.
Yeah.
And tease them and toy with them and give you Bruce Campbell, and that's it.
Yeah,
like that's what
brilliant. Yeah.
You know, and Sam Raimi is going to make you have to you know, just confront the fact that maybe you're being a bit of a child in what you're, you know, screaming for.
Yeah.
And you need to calm down.
Yeah, or at least hinting towards something in the future, possibly. But one of the things that I want us to try to do
Uh-huh.
is, and again, because it fits into this world of the MCU, that is a progressive telling of stories that sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but it is one large overarching story. Let's say,
Okay.
let's try and see if we can't just look at the film for its own, right?
Okay.
For no other reason other than I think that's the best way for us to sort of really gauge what was the success of this film in terms of how do we feel about it. And I want to start by saying this. This is the closest that the MCU has ever come to producing a horror film.
Right.
This was fantastic.
Yeah.
In terms of that regard. I really appreciated that about this film.
Yeah. And I mean, there was a point in the movie where I turned to my son, and I said, well, that was kind of grotesque.
It's like, dark.
Whoa.
Yeah, it is a dark film.
Yeah, but it worked, man. Yeah. Did it work? But that's so interesting about this movie. So this movie has been like delayed for a year and a half or more. Was supposed to come out before WandaVision. So this movie was rewritten because they went ahead and did WandaVision first.
Okay.
And this movie, like they started filming without knowing what the ending was going to be. Like they didn't have an ending yet because they weren't exactly sure exactly where it was going to slot in the end. And so, I mean, it for a movie that had difficulties in its production, it was fantastic. And for a Raimi-esque horror flick, it really worked and was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was Raimi-esque in so many ways, but not his sort of typical horror fare, which has a lot of tinged humor in it. If you think back to the Evil Dead series and so forth, it was a little more restrained and a little more story focused, but just some I mean, I don't know if disturbing images is maybe going too far, but it's like he went for it and he kept it consistent throughout the film. There was not only darkness in terms of things that occurred in the action, but also in the storytelling. The deterioration of a character, the sort of alternate, persona that comes from someone who has experienced such, intense trauma. It was a great study in, what someone within the confines of the MCU and the storytelling of its characters. The development of the Scarlet Witch in this film seemed to even, there wasn't a lot of that in WandaVision on purpose, I'm sure. And here we get the full-on treatment of this character. And I just thought it was an absolute brilliant story.
And the other thing I will say, because of what you were just referring to, mini spoiler. I hope this isn't a spoiler. I don't think it is, but Wanda's the bad guy. And
I don't know. Spoiler.
And FYI, newsflash, big surprise. It really helps if the bad guy is well developed and
sure.
There's a connection to the bad guy and we have an understanding of where the bad guy is coming from. So this movie was buoyed by Wanda's, turn, honestly, because she made such a compelling villain.
Yeah, absolutely. I have wanted an Elizabeth Olsen sort of centerpiece film in this character. And while she got the series, right, and her performance in that is just, again, I'm ashamed I waited so long, but kind of glad because it was fresh on my mind. This is the first time I think that we see her, aside from a little bit in Civil War, where she really gets a hefty part of the focus. And man, she was so great at it without being campy. There was a sincerity here that just it was horrifying.
Yeah. I mean, her walk through the Illuminati headquarters was so scary. Oh Jesus, this is
so great.
And just such a Raimi cut too. Just such a the inevitable walk of terror. It's just it really was really good.
Raimi does such a great job of building tension with the most minute moments. It's fantastic. Yeah. So okay, so let's try to look at the film from the aspect of I've got to put this up on screen. This was such a great line in the film. If you've seen it, you know what we're talking about. But so the script was great. I loved it. So if we look at it from the story standpoint, which I think we've begun to do so, then let's also look at it from cinematic effects and cinematography and so forth. And then overall from an acting standpoint, who stood out, what went well. So can we now move a little bit towards the acting, because I don't think enough can be said about Xochitl Gomez as America Chavez. I mean, subdued performance, but so effective.
And to be able to step in and be with Benedict Cumberbatch and Olsen and just be like, and Okafor,
and carry her part.
Just fantastic. The acting here really was just unbelievable, like so good, top to bottom. Everybody just
I can't think of a weak link in terms of the acting.
No, it was so really solid. The acting was great. You mentioned the effects. I'll start with the effects. I thought that some of the effects worked, and some of the effects did not work.
Okay.
I did feel like look, I am never going to be a fan of action scene CGI human being. That never works for me, starting with Matrix Revolution, with the fight with Neo and CGI Neo going up against the CGI Smiths.
That's still
starting from there on. Now don't do it. If the question is CGI person entirely or just scrap the scene, because the CGI person is always going to look like a CGI person.
Right.
If it's a human being, obviously there are characters that are CGI and that, that can work. But if we're used to seeing the person as a human being, just get them to do a thing. And if they can't physically do exactly what you're looking for, work around that. That's there are limiting factors here, and that's okay. And there were some with both Wanda and Strange that just didn't work, but some of the other the horror effects really worked. The scary stuff. They did a thing here where because if you've seen The Evil Dead and other Raimi films, you're aware that he's got the Harryhausen Harryhausen. Shit, that guy's name. Blair will type it in for me. Harryhausen's claymation stuff going on in a lot of his movies with the skeletons and stuff, and that comes into play in this movie, and but only it doesn't. It looks like it was done with CGI, but it looked like they did the CGI to look like it was claymation, and it was really effective, I thought.
Yeah. No, from a cinematic standpoint, there's so much great that goes on with this movie, and I'll tell you honestly, I hear what you're saying about CGI characters and so forth, and there have been so many films that have been I won't say ruined by it, but it does take you out of the flow of the film when you can notice things like this. I didn't quite catch it myself, but I think it's because I was just so taken in by the entirety of it that I'm glad you pointed that out, because that is something I missed. One of the biggest things that I loved about this film from a cinematic standpoint is just the set pieces. So many of them were, of course, created digitally. But again, the strength of being able to blend such massive landscapes and such massive images into the flow. I love, the temple where, she sees her, visage
state,
and
her statue to herself.
Exactly. I mean, that entire set piece from the outside, and then to be able to zoom into the internal piece of it and still feel like you could sense the scope of the set and of the place that they were in. That's just some of the stuff that not only Raimi but the MCU gets right. They make everything feel big when it needs to feel big. And yeah, there was just so much success, from the imagery of the film, the story, the acting. Um, I mean, it was hard for me to come out of that and think, because usually I can sort of dissect a film in the days after I watch it and go, okay, here's what went well, here's what I think should have or could have gone better. And I really enjoyed this film on so many levels. It's hard for me to pick it apart.
The first the first act is a bit disjointed, and that's it. Like that, and that's almost a nitpick. Like that's almost like they had to get into the story. But and also that I think that plays into sort of like the lack of a consistent director and the lack of a starting script that was complete. But the third act is so good that it's just like, oh yeah, I forgot that the first act wasn't the best.
One of the, I think, if I'm being ultra picky, and I only say this on air because I actually was, I did some reading afterwards and was like, okay, it wasn't just me that thought this. This movie, I think, suffered from this moment will get him. Pause. And there's like, okay, unless you have this big sort of response from people,
right?
Because I remember sitting in the theater, and there's a particular portion of the film, if you haven't seen it, go see it, but Illuminati. And so it's like, as each of the characters, it was so like, the images of these people arriving into the frame were so telegraphed.
If you've ever seen the Hollywood Squares, it was the introduction of the celebrities from the Hollywood Squares.
Okay. Yes.
That's what it was.
Right. And, but like supposedly surprise reveals, right?
Yeah.
They took too long, especially for the payoff, which again, we won't get into too much, but that was the only thing that I felt like, oh, this is sort of taking me out of the flow of what's happening, and then they were intercutting to scenes outside of that sort of moment. And that was really the only place where I felt like, oh, okay, we're playing to the audience. And I remember sitting in the theater at No Way Home when they did they did that stuff very successfully. Whatever I feel about the film doesn't matter. They played moments of reveals very successfully, where this one, it felt like, okay, we're going to get him with this one. Yeah. And now we're going to get him with this one. And it was like, you have totally disjointed this entire scene.
And now in the center square, we have...
and then the final moment, it's supposed to be the sort of triumphant reveal of the character. And you're like, okay, yeah, but I knew he was going to be here. And so that was about my only beef with the film, was like, you got to stop playing. You got to trust the audience to react. Don't give them space. It's not a live show, you know?
Yeah.
And so, but that's me being ultra picky.
And part of that too, I think, is Raimi honestly being subversive. I think he does that on purpose because of where it goes within about 10 minutes from that scene. And literally it's Raimi being, and also Feige too. I don't think it's just Raimi. I think it's Feige recognizing that Raimi will enjoy this too. So let's just go ahead and do it. And it, it's interesting because I watched Free Guy over the weekend as well. And there are fan service moments in that movie, which I thoroughly enjoy. I love those moments in the movie. And I also equally love those moments in this movie, but the difference being Free Guy uses those tools, literally those tools, as parts of the repertoire in the movie, whereas this one subverts those tools. Almost to give an effect of, don't forget, Wanda is really probably the most powerful being, without an Infinity Stone in the world, or in the universe. So let's not forget that.
Absolutely. I want to put this up just because I want to throw out some love to a friend, Pharrell. She writes, it's Evil Dead Army of Darkness Marvel Edition.
It really was. I mean, it really was. There's no doubt about that, especially the third act. It was just... Yeah.
Oh man, we could go on and on, but we're
We
going to
could.
get on to our ratings of this film. Paul,
Do we
before we
want?
do that, any last thoughts before you want to
Do we
before we go
want
to
to
ratings?
do? Do we want to kind of do a spoiler geek out now, or do we want to throw it at the end of the show and just be like, "All right, we're gonna. You can stop. You can hop off now, and we're gonna spoiler how excited."
So
we
why
are
don't we
about
do
this.
this? Let's be responsible, and
Okay.
we're going to throw up our where is it? Here it is.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert moment. Because listen,
Okay.
I trust you to speak on whatever it is you wish to share. We're going to let the spoiler alert stand there for a bit as you talk, because I'm not ready to share. But I'll riff off of whatever you want to bring to the table. So I'll support you in this moment.
So the moment they flash, like the moment they flash John Krasinski as Reed Richards, I was just like, I'm in. Like, just
okay.
I don't care what happens for the rest of the movie. I am in. And I knew that it doesn't end well for Reed Richards, or any of the Illuminati.
Sure.
You know, and yeah, I mean, the Professor X moment is great too.
Yeah.
But John Krasinski, like, and there's no reason for John Krasinski to be there as Reed Richards, and because there's no announcement of a Fantastic Four movie. There's no script for a Fantastic Four movie. There is nothing that's out there other than fans really want John Krasinski to be
right.
It was the epitome of fan service, and then to do him in the way they just like gone, it just was like, yeah, this is perfect. I love seeing him. And I love that they just completely dump him immediately. And it's just like...
So Nick is sharing that there is a plan of some sort. So I haven't read up on it. So
I mean,
I don't know.
It's rumored, and yeah, but they don't have a script. I mean, yeah, they don't have a script. It's
It's in the works.
It's in the works.
There is
and
a plan
if you
somewhere.
want to believe that John Krasinski's involved or not, then that's fine. But
yeah,
anyway, that's it. I really wanted to. It was officially announced. He's saying that it was officially announced, and I was not aware of that. I thought it was still like he has kind of teased about an interest in doing it, but maybe it is announced, and which is even better.
For sure.
Which is even better. So cool.
All right.
Anyways,
well, so
yeah,
with that in mind, I will say this. To your sharing of that moment. I lost what there we go. No, what I was going to say to that was, okay, so I get that people are raving about this particular bit of casting in the moment and so forth. But again, because I'm not as versed in these characters as some are, I sat there going, okay, cool. Right. And again, I'm in an alternate universe. And so therefore these characters are different people who became Captain Marvel, who are so-and-so, right? And but what was funny for me then is seeing that, you brought him on and then the scene continued and you're like, okay, that was just to build up Wanda, right? And so again, that was a little bit of a chuckle for me to do that, or to see that. So but again, to go back to where we are, let me take down the spoiler alert sign. Thank you for sharing that, Paul. We want to get now down to the nitty-gritty of rating this film. Here on Real to Real Talk, we always give taco ratings to our movies, with 5 tacos being the most that a film can get. You can throw guac at it if you like it, if you want to. Paul, I'll turn it over to you. Your rating for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
I'm going with 4 tacos. It's really fantastic. I hope everybody sees it. It's not top tier Marvel. Like, just to be clear, I do not consider it top tier Marvel, where top tier Marvel is going to be Black Panther, Civil War, Winter Soldier, Endgame, Infinity War, Guardians of the Galaxy. Those that's like top, and then it's like tier 2, maybe tier 3, but still fantastic. Like that for it beats any DC movie that I've seen other than the Dark Knight. It's great, and bravo Marvel, you continue to hit home runs and triples, and that's great.
Indeed. Well, I'm going to give it 4 plus guac, 4 tacos plus guac. And I really was hovering on the 5 taco scale again until I was thinking about how I was sort of taken out of the moment by certain things throughout the film. Again, the third act was solid, but there were things that were happening. The pacing at the beginning, some of the moments that sort of were too much fan service, and it just, for me, it killed sort of the flow of the story. So if I'm fair, this is a four taco movie with guac. I want to see it again. I want to see it on IMAX, and I'm as a Disney Plus subscriber, I'm looking forward to a day when I can see it at home more than a few times, because I really did enjoy it. And I felt like between the two Doctor Strange films that we now have, this was far superior to the first one. Even though the first one was the origin story, overall, this one just really blew that one out of the water. So
cool.
Yeah, not even close. All right. Well, that brings us to the conclusion of this week's main topic, which means we're going to remind you that you can find us on social media. Make sure you stop by and visit us on Facebook. Just look up the name of the show, Real to Real Talk. You can comment, you can like, you can watch past episodes of the show. If you are a Facebook individual, you can also find our show posters on Instagram. Just look up at Real to Real Talk. And for those of you who watch us on YouTube, we thank you so much for doing so. Please make sure you click that subscribe button and also the notification bell, so that when you miss our live broadcast, you know when they post.
You don't miss a thing.
Week to week. You shouldn't miss, because we have a lot of fun. All right, so we will keep that in mind while we move to the next portion of our show, which is a little segment we like to call "What the Hell Did I Just Watch?" Paul, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, so we're gonna rewind to 1981, and a little movie called The Evil Dead is released, and it literally is a little movie. Like it's just this tiny little strange horror movie that's grotesque but funny-ish. Not it's not evil. It's not a darkness level funny, but it has the humorous undertones. It's a new thing, and Sam Raimi is this director that comes out with this, and people don't know what to do with him. People don't know what to do with Sam Raimi in 1981. So it's 4 years before he does his next movie. And his next movie is a little thing called Crime Wave. And what happened? I pressed trailer. It's a little thing called Crime Wave, and it was written by two gentlemen along with Sam Raimi. It was written by two gentlemen named Ethan and Joel Cohen.
Oh, wow.
Have you ever heard of them before?
They strikes like I'm kind of on the edges here.
Yeah. So this movie that you've never heard of, I assure you've never heard of this movie.
I have not.
Called Crime Wave, directed by Sam Raimi, written by Joel, Ethan Cohen, and Sam Raimi. Released in 1985, the first feature film directed by Sam Raimi after his insta-cult classic, The Evil Dead.
Yeah.
And this movie is free to watch right now on Pluto TV, people. Like, you can go watch it right now. And I am telling you, you're going to wonder how we ever got on our job, because this movie is just terrible. This is this is a classic example of just how did three of the most talented filmmakers, of the past 40 years, write something so bad. This movie is
early,
mind-boggling bad. Like, this movie does one of the worst things that movies can do, where they have the two villains, or they use voiceover, where it's like, why are you doing voiceover? And it's like obvious voiceover, where like there's two bad guys, and one of the bad guys talks like this even though he doesn't look like this, and the voice and the mouth don't, and the other guy talks like this even though he doesn't look like this, and this is his voice, so it's like, why are you doing, like, where was that decision? Like, how did that decision get made? Like, what are we doing? Yeah. It's the story about these two bad guys who do literally go through this town. They never really kind of establish where the town is, but that's all right. They go through the town, and they're just killing people and doing horrible things all over town. This crime wave, and then this like little geeky guy, like just an absolute loser, ends up saving the day and saving a whole bunch of people's lives, and kills the bad guys, but gets blamed for the crime wave, even though, like, they don't kill everybody. Like, there are people in the town that he saves that don't step forward and say, oh yeah, he saved our lives, or he has a bazillion alibis. Nobody's like bothers to alibi except for the woman that he falls in love with at the very beginning of the film that won't give him the time of day because he's such a loser. But throughout the movie, because he keeps saving her life and other people's lives, she slowly falls in love with him. And then there's a moment at the end, towards the end, where it looks like he dies, and she's driving off as he dies, and so she drives off, and but then off camera somewhere he goes on trial and is now on death row. Okay. And is about to be executed, and you see the woman that he loves is now in a car filled with nuns. She's a nun now.
Wow.
And arrives at the jail just before the execution and says, no, he didn't do it. And they stop the execution and they set him free because this nun who is breaking her vow of silence just comes here. Like, it's so dumb. It's not good. If you the one interesting thing is that the prison that he's in is called Hudsucker State Prison, and if you like the Coen Brothers, Hudsucker Proxy, that's mildly interesting. That's like the most interesting. Like the movie, like it's supposed to be funny throughout, and it's just not funny throughout. It's not witty. It's not. There's one actor in it who is that guy from the 80s, Brian James. He was in Fifth Element. He was the sergeant that or the captain or whatever that goes to recruit Bruce Willis to do the thing. That guy is in this movie, but he's one of the bad guys. He's the bad guy that talks like this, and it's like,
wow, makes no sense.
It really is a fascinating bit of film that is terrible.
Got it.
And there you go. What the hell? What? How did Joel Cohen, Ethan Cohen, and Sam Raimi make something this inane? I don't know.
I'll chalk it up to maybe inexperience at that point in their lives. Or maybe they just haven't entered into what they would become over the last several decades.
No, that's true. But I mean, like, how did the people who make this
film?
How did they get another film? Because it's
this should have been the end of their careers.
This should have killed their careers before they even got started. Like, the Coens are coming off of Blood Simple. The year before they did Blood Simple, which is just a great neo-noir.
Sure.
Thank God they did Raising Arizona next, and Raimi went ahead and did Evil Dead 2. But I mean, good golly, this thing is a stinker. But hey, it's fascinating.
They were let off the hook and went on to make wonderful things. So in the chat, I must acknowledge that Blair shares with us it is the Fifth Element's birthday today. If 1997, that would be 25.
Yeah, I think every day should be fifth. Yeah, every day's Fifth Element's birthday.
25th anniversary.
It's possible today is actually Fifth Element's birthday, but I'm just going to say every day is Fifth Element's birthday.
Yeah, indeed. So 25 years. Oh my goodness, how old am I? So all right, well, it has been a fun time as always talking about movies and stuff. This has been kind of a relatively short episode, but that's okay.
I have another.
Go ahead.
I could do another. What the hell did I just watch? I have one in the can.
Oh gosh, save it.
Okay.
I think we did okay with the one. I don't know if I could stand another. But I believe, are we coming up on a break week?
Yes, we are not on next week.
We're not on
nothing.
Next week.
There are no movies coming out. Like, there's literally nothing that either one of us want to watch.
Yeah, it's like studios are kind of waiting for Memorial Day. So
yeah, and I'm out of town on the weekend.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. So make sure that you enjoy your week next week, folks, as we are off air until the 24th.
The 24th.
So we'll be back on the 24th here live on Facebook and YouTube, 8 Eastern, 7 Central. So keep an eye on our social media so you know what's going to be coming up in a couple of weeks as we get back together to keep talking movies. Lots of big movies coming up, Paul, in the next few weeks.
Yeah, like there.
Just not next week.
Well, there's not. No, not. It's. We actually have 3 weeks until the big movies because that's when
Right,
Top
right.
Gun comes out. Like so,
Yeah.
2 weeks from now, Downton Abbey is coming out. I don't think. I think we are both going to be a polite pass on that.
I might be busy.
Okay, yeah. But the smaller movie that's coming out that I hope it's coming to theaters near us is Men, which is
that does look phenomenal.
Yeah, I'm afraid that it's probably going to be one of those that gets like it's going to be in every big city out that's like 3 hours away from you or I, and then so we'll have to wait for 2 weeks. But then after that we've got Top Gun, and we might have to dedicate 2 straight weeks to Top Gun, and then 2 weeks after that is Jurassic World, and then Lightyear. And then it's just gonna be boom, 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 boom. It's gonna be something.
Well, lots to look forward to, and I'm just gonna throw this in because why the hell not? If you have not yet seen the film The Gentleman, it is now available on Netflix. You have no more excuses. Check out that film. Guy Ritchie, cast of thousands.
I showed Blair that this weekend. Like literally, he was over at my house, and I was like, "Oh, let's watch The Gentleman," and he's like, "Yeah, cool." So I wholeheartedly support that.
Yeah,
so
I hope you enjoyed it. And as soon as I saw it drop, I was like, oh, people got to know. For sure. So make sure you check that out. There's so much other stuff going on everywhere that you can find streaming. Blair writes, no Downton Abbey Philistines. So maybe I'll sneak it in there somewhere because why not? But I'll let you know. All right, Paul. Well, as always, it's a fun time talking movies. Enjoy your time away and enjoy the week, and we'll see you on the 24th again. So, all right, to all of you out there, we say thank you for joining us as you always do. We appreciate you, and most importantly, don't forget you are awesome, you're amazing, and the world's a better place because you are in it. We will see you next time on